From the blood-soaked fields of the Civil War and the fire-hosed streets of the Civil Rights Movement to just yesterday, as I speak, demonstrations erupting in all 50 of the United States as Americans revolt against the White House's illegal power grab. But we've been here before. Thing is, usually these are dangerous times, and we'll have a president in the White House who's also trying to fix it, but this time is different. We have no safety net except for you and me, our voices, our pushback. And so then the question becomes, America, are we up for the task at hand? Are you up for it? And then to that, you might be saying, what is it? What exactly do we need to do? And that's what we're going to dive all into today. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to introduce somebody to you who has lived this before, a chapter like this in American history that was dangerous and frightening and scary. And he was front and center. And to hear him say it, he didn't really think about the danger that much, but subconsciously, absolutely he did. But we're gonna pick his brain and find out how it is that he participated and made a difference. I'm Jillian Harris, the Conscious Cougar, and this podcast has a motto. The motto is wisdom, health, and beauty by any means necessary. Any means. Okay. And today we are diving deep into the wisdom category as we are seeking lessons from those who've gone before us, because you know what? History is not just a bunch of data. It's a roadmap, and we need to pay attention. So we will be talking to someone who lived through the civil rights movement, which is still on, actually, but it was really epicentered in the 50s and 60s, and this person lived through it, and we're going to ask them how they did it. We're going to find out if there are any things that were done then that we can employ now to help us through this situation. He's a super special guest, but he's a really special guest, like really special, like a second father to me, like way special. And I'm also realizing that in order to get this story out, I'm going to have to break a cardinal conscious cougar rule. And that is that I'm going to give you enough information that you may be able to kind of sort of figure out how old I am, which is not cool. That's not okay. And I want you to also know that I'm going to go back to my regular MO after this podcast, lying again about my age. That is what I do. And I advocate that you do the same. But for now, it is what it is. And we're going to start in just a sec. Well, a few secs. Let's get a few words from our sponsors. Girlmojis. Super cool art on super cool stuff for a super cool cause. Check out the fat catalog on girlmojis.com. That's girl, M as in Mary, O, J, I, S as in Sam.com. Do not forget the S. Girlmojis.com, where a part of the proceeds of what you buy circles back to benefit a beautiful cause. Like anything you buy with hearts on it benefits Children's Hospital. If it's got American military type art, it goes to support our beloved American veterans. And if it's got a Ukraine design on it, a portion of the proceeds goes to a Ukrainian charity. And the art, okay, picture caveman graffiti meets Picasso. You must check this out for yourself, and go ahead, grab something cool, do a good deed, and look amazing while you do it. Girlmojis.com. Art with impact. Feeling burnt out on politics? Exhausted? Hopeless, maybe? Like your voice doesn't really matter, why bother, right? Wrong. Introducing the antidote to political exhaustion, the Democracy Matters Countdown, a powerful calendar system counting down the days while delivering 1,513 motivational messages, one for every year, every month, and every day leading up to the next inauguration in 2029. We can't afford to passively wait, fingers crossed, until the next election. No, the work begins now. The Democracy Matters Countdown isn't just a calendar, it's a movement, a daily reminder that democracy isn't a one-day event, it's an everyday commitment. It's packed with messages of support, wisdom, and profound quotes from those who fought this fight before, and a portion of the proceeds benefits the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and the Human Rights Campaign. Every day, you get a push to keep going because change happens when we show up. If you're tired but still believe in making a difference, or you believe that unity is possible and the way, then this is for you. Your guide, your fuel, your daily reminder that democracy works if we work it. The Democracy Matters Countdown, available now on Amazon. All right, now follow me for a moment. The year is like 1942, 43-ish or so. My dad, picture this young man, elementary school, walking down the sidewalk, and in a house up ahead, there's another little boy who is focused on out the window, looking for my dad. And as my dad approaches, he comes out the door, down the steps, and joins him on the sidewalk. That's my dad's best friend, Bob, and they walk to school together every single day all the way through high school. Okay, now fast forward 59-ish or so, and my dad is in Riverside, California. He's stationed at March Air Force Base, and he's outside shining the car before going off to work, because you got to shine the car before you drive it, or you can't drive it because it's not shiny. That's the way he felt about those things. Anyway, he sees somebody walking down the street, walking down the sidewalk, and just the body movement of this person. It's like only one person who had that unique kind of style and walking. So my dad takes a chance, and he's like, Bob. And Bob turned around. Okay. What are the chances? I'm talking small town Petersburg, Virginia, and now small town Riverside, California, back in the day. Oh my God. So amazing. So anyway, this miracle was beautiful, and Bob and his then fiance, my now Aunt Shirley, became roommates with my mom and dad, and then they got married, and then and I was the flower girl. Oh my God, it was awesome. And then they moved out and they got their own house, and they made their children, who became my cousins, not by blood, but by love, by bond, by that deeply rooted tradition of chosen family. And we're still like that to this day. Okay, now picture this. I was about this old. How adorable, right? Yeah. And one day, in fact, this picture that you're looking at, it's me, Mom, and my dad, right in this era. I mean, I was right about this age. I think I'm, 4 or 5 years old in this picture. And one day, we are over at Uncle Bob's house, and Uncle Bob is begging my dad to let me be in a march with them in Riverside. This march was going to go to Riverside City Hall, and I remember that my dad was silent for a minute. He was just like, and he was worried, you know what I mean? Now, as I look back, I can read what he was thinking. He was worried about my safety. He, knew the potential dangers and stuff, but my Uncle Bob was like, please, come on, and I was just like, please let me. I didn't know about any danger. I just knew this was going to be fun, and I was just jumping up and down, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please. And so he said, okay, but I know also that my Uncle Bob assured him that he would, protect me with his life. And so that is how I found myself in my first march. Feet on the pavement, voices of change all around me. And maybe that's why I am as I am right now, as we are in this situation and I just can't be quiet, This has been my life, part of my life purpose anyway, to add my voice to the effort for change, for unity, for oneness. So yeah, that was my first march ever, and it was important, and we're going to talk more about it in a moment, but I get to introduce you now to my Uncle Bob. My Uncle Bob, oh my gosh. much. And I want you to know, like at my dad's funeral a year and a half ago, I introduced my Uncle Bob, and I let everybody know that like this man is the only person on the planet who qualifies to be my second dad. He's that kind of important to me. So I'm introducing you to him now, Dr. Robert Bland. So I often hesitate, but sometimes I let it out about being in that march with you when I was, I don't know, I was like 4 or 5 at the most, maximum 5
I
years old.
I am sure. I'm sure because not only you, but later um, our kids, Angela and Leo, were marching when they were barely able to walk.
Right.
So we have a history of protest.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so back then, as I recall, the like when I was in it, and let's just even just talk about that. I remember the moment when you were asking my dad if he would let me, be in this.
Hmm.
And and he was silent for a minute. And I think there was a lot of communication going on in that silence. And it was worry. And as a kid, I didn't get it.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
understand it at all. I
of
thought he was
course.
just like deciding whether I should have this fun or not. And but he was concerned about things that we would be concerned about now, but not as much then. And if I'm not mistaken, you tell me if I'm right. Having children back in those days, this is the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Having children um, in the front of the line was almost like a shield then, right?
Hmm.
A little bit.
Well, you know, the protests that we were involved in California
Uh,
were not the same as the protests in Montgomery, Alabama, and other
okay.
places in the South. And nobody turned the fire hoses on us
Right.
and threw us in the into the wall and beat us with billy clubs and that kind of thing. The
Right.
closest we came to that was one uh, protest that we had, and I forget what we were even protesting, but it became a spectacle because the Nazi party came out with a counter protest, and
Oh,
things got a little edgy. And
yeah.
so the police pulled up with their paddy wagon and were threatening to arrest people. And so, fortunately, we broke up the demonstration before that happened. But other than that, I
Uh-huh.
don't recall any time when there was any physical danger.
Right.
Um, People would curse at us and call us names and that kind of thing, but
Right.
um, nobody threatened to harm us, including the police and the other authorities.
Right. When they came out with the paddy wagon, when it was you guys, and the Nazis,
Mhm.
were they threatening everybody equally with arrest?
Uh, you know, I didn't stick around long enough to find out.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't do that survey, so I
Right.
don't know.
Right.
Um, but I think that yeah, certainly we felt that so we were under threat of arrest, and so we called off the demonstration at that time.
Yeah, got you. Well, so you, Uncle Bob, were, when I was younger, I remember I used to refer to you as the Martin Luther King of Riverside. I mean, you were an activist. You were organizing a lot of the things that happened, right?
Yeah, I was heavily involved in uh, most of what went on in terms of protests or
Yeah.
anything that was going on with, in particular, it was the school integration thing that
Mhm.
was the biggest deal during that period of time.
Right. Even in Southern California, um, did that feel did you feel the intensity like it was in Little Rock? I don't think it was the same as in Little Rock, but
Well, it in that particular instance, it came pretty close. I mean, we
Oh,
would get the threatening phone calls, we would get the hate mail, we would get people threatening to come by and firebomb the house, and things like that. Uh, Mainly because John Renfro, who was my neighbor across the street, I don't know if you remember
I
him.
totally remember Mr. Renfro.
Well, it's the two of us were in leadership roles of the opposition, put it that way. And
Yeah.
so our name was constantly in the paper.
Okay.
So because people saw those names in the paper, we became the symbols of all of the resistance against what was going on. And so we both kind of shared the brunt of the reaction, which
Right.
was a lot like you'd expect in the Deep South.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. So, but I remember hearing about the letters and the
Mhm.
threats and stuff. And did you leave the town because of that? Because you
Oh
moved?
no,
No.
no. I left because my job ended there, and
Okay.
and they were going to transfer me to Channel 8.
Okay.
And so I figured it was time for me to find a different job.
Right. Okay. All right. Got it. So, okay. What you went through back then. Um, well, gosh, I want to do two things. First, I want to talk about like just get your take on, wow, it seems like we've made so much progress, if I'm not mistaken. And now look at where we are.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
take, right? Like,
it's interesting, because one of the things that I recall early on in the civil rights movement
mhm,
was that people who objected to what we were trying to accomplish in terms of changing the laws as they
right,
relate to segregation and things like that, they would always say, you can change the law, but you can't change people's hearts.
mhm,
And we said, okay, we'll take that. Let's change the law, and
yeah,
we'll worry about the hearts later.
yeah,
And I think now we're seeing some of that there has been smoldering kind of a resentment, and it's coming forth now um, as we face issues such as immigration and other things like that. Some of
right,
that resentment is being expressed, and we find ourselves now in an environment where that is accepted, if not welcomed. So that we are seeing the full force of that.
right. But then at the same time, it is a new America in comparison to the way it was in the 50s and 60s. Um,
It is. It is. It's changed in many ways, and in other ways, it's kind of the same. I mean, we've made a lot of progress in terms of what is uh, the law,
right,
and also in terms of what has become common practice.
right,
Things that are common practice now were not so common back then. So, um, in that sense, things have changed.
right.
But in another sense, some of that same resentment has never really gone away. It just went underground,
Yeah.
and now it's coming back up.
But would you also say that, there's been enough of an evolution in consciousness with everyone? And let's even look at that change. For instance, there's been so much change that we saw the unbelievable when Obama was elected,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so the same kind of mentalities collectively are happening now. And I have to remind myself that that's the America that we live in. And yes, we do have that festering that we didn't get to hear about because it wasn't as popular.
Hmm.
It does seem that it's being allowed to be more popular right now, to have racist, misogynistic, and other isms that are, dark and negative. But there's still this other force now, like a rainbow of people, a contingent that are Americans that are for diversity and equity, and the unity that we need, that was beautiful as it was coming about in the 60s, and then when Obama was elected. And so I'm resting on that. Do you have faith in that to pull us out of this?
Well, I don't think we've got much choice. Either that pull us out of it, or we're going down a very dark path.
Yeah.
So I just hope that the current administration and all this rash of executive orders and other things is going beyond what is acceptable to most people, and that there will be some kind of a backlash. I don't know that, because we're still in the honeymoon phase of Trump's presidency, but it eventually, I think people are going to get sick of that, and we'll see if that's reflected in the midterm elections.
That's 2 years.
Huh? That's 2 years. Yeah. So they have adopted a fairly wise strategy that when you do something controversial, do it early in your term, and by the time the election comes around, everybody will have forgotten about it, and it won't be a big issue. No.
Did he do this last time?
Nah, not as much. Not as much. I think he had a lot of help this time.
Yes.
There was Project 2025, and all of that. There were a lot of conservative scholars who spent time researching how to do this the next time, so that it could be more effective than it was in his first term.
Right.
So you can see him consolidating power in so many cases. I mean, just replacing anybody and everybody that might stand in the way of what he wants to do.
Right.
So, down to firing civil servants.
Right.
And so that's he's gone down to pretty low level, replacing people who might be objective with people who will just do what he tells them to do.
Right.
So that's discouraging.
Right.
But I guess the only thing to do is try and fight back.
And so on that, this vigilance, the Democracy Matters Countdown. I've got to send you a copy. That's the most recent book that accidentally happened.
Okay.
To the situation, because I'm still supposed to be promoting the one I just written through. Anyway. But it was a knee jerk, and so each year has a theme, and this year, 2025, is the vigilance edition.
Okay.
It's about staying awake and staying on it and everything. And that's one of the reasons I thought it would be so awesome to talk to you, because you were so vigilant in those days, and we needed that. And so, one of the things that the book talks about is how to what to do, and how to actually not be passive, but to move forward. But then also we're in an environment where it feels scary. And I would say, I don't know that it's any more scary now than it was in the 60s. Or if it's maybe less scary. I don't know. It's kind of scary because of the environment energetically that he has unleashed in terms of the threats and everything. It makes folks not. I do podcasts and people are like, I did this one and I wanted so many people to talk with me, but they're like, I go, no, all you have to do, I'll just text interview you and then I'll read what you texted me back. And they're like, oh, okay. So great. That was hard to do. But anyway, it's great to speak, especially if we can't disguise their voice and their, and everything. But so I wanted to ask you about that.
It helps to be retired.
Right, but that's
Okay.
now, at the time then. How did you handle it then? How did you
Uh,
stand up and go, I'm doing this?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I never really thought about the consequences.
Uh,
It was just I'm going to do this, and we'll fight whatever comes later.
right, right.
As a government employee, I had to walk the line of what's called the Hatch Act, and the Hatch Act prevents anybody employed by the federal government from participating in any partisan activities. So I could not run for elected office, for example, as a Democrat or Republican. I could run for city council and nonpartisan offices, but I
Okay.
could not only could not run, but I could not endorse anybody who was running for political office and a lot of other things that go along with that. So
Okay.
that was the line that I had to walk, and somebody once reported to the government that I had violated the Hatch Act. And so I had a big investigation
Oh,
uh, on my job, and they found out that I had not.
okay.
But it
See?
was, yeah. So, so you know, there are people that will use whatever they can to silence you. Uh,
Mm,
they want, but you just refuse to give in to that. And
right.
you be careful, but you speak your piece.
Yeah. So see, like, I hear you with your why being the main thing to push you forward to do what you did the way that you demonstrated. But I also know that, you loved your wife, your kids, family, and that's in the back of your mind. So you have a degree to which you're going to do this, and also a way you're going to do it in a smart way. Am I right? Like
Yeah,
you were strategizing. You were not just aimlessly going out to set things on fire or anything. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's part of what isn't a piece of advice, because I'm like wondering, how to encourage people to do things. And I think that the way that you did it is a good example. That when the paddy wagon showed up, you knew it was time to go.
yeah, right. You're right. You're
you
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
You have your limit.
yeah, yeah,
And also just to strategize and think ahead, and I don't know how nowadays something happens on the other side of the world and we know within seconds, it's
yeah,
already on YouTube, it's already somewhere. I don't know if you knew, were we able to see accurately what was happening to the rioters and stuff, or not rioters, they were just simply peaceful demonstrators. uh,
yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
yeah,
We still had TV and
yeah, but
reporters that covered that
how quickly do we get it?
pretty quickly.
Okay.
Pretty quickly. It was almost real time. I mean, because people knew what was happening. Um, Martin Luther King, when he had a number of those demonstrations in which they were attacked by the sheriff and the police and
Right.
other people like that, they were smart enough to let the press know ahead of time that they were going to demonstrate,
Mhm.
so that there would be documentation of whatever happened to them
Right.
uh, during those demonstrations. So,
Smart.
uh,
Yeah. Well, okay. So a minute ago you said, it helps to be retired. No,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you're retired. But I mean, it's like that's a really good point, because um, who has demonstrating and taking part in these sort of campaigns, even for peace, as part of their regular agenda. It's a rare person who's that kind of activist, and
yeah,
what needs to happen now, in my personal humble opinion, is that a whole bunch more just regular normal folks need to step up and figure out how they can participate to make a change. Like if we're just
yeah,
silent and don't do anything, don't say anything, don't feel anything, then this stays the same. So You were saying, it pays to be retired. What did you exactly mean by that?
Well, first of all, I mean, it meant that I don't have to worry about Trump firing me
Okay, good
because
point.
because I, uh, and which is could be a real concern because I mean he has reached far down into the ranks of civil service to put people on leave and replace them when he felt they had an agenda that was different than his own.
Right.
So that's
Uh-oh.
one thing to be concerned about. For example, when I was working, I was involved with what at that time was not DEI but EEO, which is has subsequently been renamed as DEI. But
What did the
in
D, what was the O?
equal employment opportunity,
D?
no E
Oh,
E E
yes.
EEO.
EEO. I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I was a EEO counselor. I headed up the EEO committee and I was very actively involved in that and been put on leave and by Trump and other things like that. So that that's one of the things that I don't have to worry about anymore is any of that kind of repercussion and
Right.
so forth. But it's at some point it's a mindset because you get to a point where something makes you angry enough that you really don't care anymore and you're willing to put yourself out there
Right.
and deal with the consequences later.
Right.
And so that's what I think needs to happen is that enough people need to find something that
Yeah.
really pisses them off and
Right.
and makes them want to get out there and stand up for
Right.
what they believe in.
Well, what do you think of this? That's what he's trying to do right now. Unleash all this. Like he's not done. The list is not done.
Oh no, no, no.
You can only do so much craziness in one day, and so there's more days coming and more crazy enough stuff coming, and it seems like it's being it's condensed. It's extreme right now on purpose to get us to that place that you just described. And I wouldn't put it past him to do the next promise of martial law.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
Possibility. The other possibility is that he's just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall with the theory that you can't fight all of these things. I mean, you
Right.
might be off attacking number one and number two, and he's
Uh-huh.
going ahead with three and four.
Right.
So there's this is not random. I mean,
Right.
it's pre-planned, and it's pre-planned by folks that are smarter than Trump is,
Mhm.
and they have advised him on proper strategy to do this, and he goes off the guardrails every once in a while and proposes something like taking over Palestine, but
Right.
it
A resort in Gaza, really?
yeah, right.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so to complete my point on asking you that question, um, you know, you're doing something by like joining me on my show today. This is like taking part in helping. And I feel like, they're just little things that people can do. And even having conversations, I'm encouraging people to be able to have a support group of like-minded folks that they can talk to, because it can feel kind of, feel isolated, especially if you fall into the fear that he wants you to have. I've unleashed these people, I've pardoned all these folks who will do anything for me, anything, okay, anything. And You said what about me? Okay. And we already know he's got a history. He loves to, like, unleash names and addresses of people who he doesn't, so folks want to be quiet. Okay. So if that's you who's listening and watching this, then you know who your people are, you know who your tribe is, you know who you can like communicate with. I think we need that. Like, this makes me feel better talking to you today, Uncle Bob.
Yeah, well, it's we need community, and we need community of folks who see this craziness for what it is.
Yes.
And not inclined to go along with it. I mean, just because this man happens to be elected as our current president and leader. So, clarity comes, I think, from discussion, and it comes from hearing other points of view, and things like that. And so we need to engage in that kind of dialogue, and so that we can be clear about what it is that is wrong,
right,
and what it is that needs to be done about it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Well, dang. Thank you. We may have to do this again sometime.
Well, sure.
Well, I love you to pieces, and thank you so much, because really, seriously, these conversations are so important, and I feel honored, actually, to be here at this time, and I hope that I can help with what I do.
Yeah, it's a peculiar time in history, and it's threat and opportunity at the same time.
Exactly.
As they say.
Right. Because of the threat, right? But I hope we can.
Oh my God, you met my Uncle Bob. Isn't he wonderful? I know. I'm so proud of him. But so here we are today. And I'm also very, very proud of the hundreds of thousands, millions of people who went to the streets, yesterday. As I speak, it was yesterday when this happened. Some places were icy cold, like snow happening and whatnot. And they were like, can't wait. No, got to get out there right now. And that is absolutely it. We're a very confident people, Americans, like in general, the collective. We are confident. We're even a little arrogant about our Americanism. And we have been spoiled by the Constitution. And so very simply, the things that are happening here, we're just not having it. Not going to have it. I always invite your feedback. You can me if you want to at theconsciouscougar@gmail.com. You can also stop by my website, theconsciouscougar.com. Also, you want to check out the democracymatterscountdown.com. The democracymatterscountdown.com. I know it's long, but you want to do that. You're going to want to be here for the next few shows coming up on the Conscious Cougar. I've got some great content for you. You remember that MAGA guy, Rich? He was the topic of a couple of past podcasts, including the Bipartisan Romance podcast. But anyway, apparently he had a bit of a crush on me. That did not work out. We will talk about it. I'm going to tell you everything. And then there's also... we're going to be talking to a Republican. I'm not calling him MAGA yet because I'm not sure, but he's a Republican for sure. And I met this person back in 2009 when I hired him to do some private investigation work for me. So he's really smart about how to fact check, how to get the true answers to things. Even though he's got a completely different opinion than I do about a lot of things, we are going to talk. We're going to bring it together and see if we can't get some understanding, at least at minimum, some understanding of the different sides. That's going to happen. And then there's also another pod I'm really excited about. My BFF, Lori Camacho, is a spiritual teacher, medium, channel. She's going to come on and she's going to channel her spirit guide named Raina. Raina is going to be the subject of the interview as I pick her brain about what the hell we're going through and what is going to happen. All of that happening right here on The Conscious Cougar. Make sure you've clicked the button to follow this podcast, okay, so that you know every time that I drop one of these out here for you. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I am The Conscious Cougar. Over and out.